2025, the scene's alive. Cannabis dreams where we all thrive. Text messages buzz, loyalty's the game. Steve Riparip, Tact Firm's the name. His emails hit harder than my last edible. Click for discounts, I'm feeling incredible. Whoa, 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 whoa. Loyalty vibes, we're rising high. Emails and texts, let's touch the sky. Ryan McMullen, Zohr Stohr's a king. Buy one, get one, oh man, that's my thing. In this green paradise, we're living the dream. Just take a fat toke and let your mind be free.
All right, welcome to the Green Dispensary Marketing Podcast, everybody. My name is Samuel Fisher. I'm the co-founder of Green Dispensary Marketing, and I'm very excited here in 2025 with the launch of our new virtual panels. We're trying to replicate the experience you get at cannabis conferences virtually. And today we're doing our pilot digital panel, and it's going to be focused on the topic of loyalty. And I'm really excited because we got 3 experts on the topic of loyalty. These gentlemen offer services like email, SMS, MMS messaging, programmatic ads, all the good stuff to help dispensaries start turning their marketing costs into a cash machine. And so to get started, I want to really quickly introduce each of our panelists. Up first, we got Steve Riparip. He is the CEO of Tact Firm. He helps cannabis dispensaries add revenue through his retention engine strategies. Up in the other corner, we got Ryan McMullen. He is the founder and CEO of Zohr Stohr Media. He partners with cannabis dispensaries doing at least $300,000 a month in revenue, helping them increase the revenue with 0 compliance issues. And then finally, in the last corner, we got Ryan Stewart, who is the CEO of Dispojoy. He helps cannabis brands get their loyalty text messages delivered and keep customers coming back into the door. And so real quick before we get started, I wanted to give you each 2 to 3 minutes to introduce yourself. And so in no particular order, let's start with Ryan McMullen. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, by the way, the intro song is heroic. So thank you for doing that. That thing
Absolutely.
is, again, finally been immortalized in song, which I've been waiting for my whole life. So that's good. That's great. Yeah, I wish I had 2 to 3 minutes worth of information to give you about myself, but I'm not quite that complicated. So basically, I started out just doing local marketing with people here in St. Louis, Missouri, all different types of verticals, so granite countertops, lawyers, and those types of things. And then I really niched down into the cannabis dispensary, kind of taking all that knowledge I learned the past 15 or 20 years or so, and boiling it down to how can we get more customers through the door of the dispensaries, and then once they're through the door, how can we maximize lifetime value and all that good stuff. So really all I do are just 2 different things. So we help our clients build their list of customers, so new customers, with our programmatic ads, which is just a fancy way of banner ads that show up all over the internet on different websites. And then once we get them in our ecosystem, then maximize their lifetime value through different loyalty programs. And I'm just a huge proponent of email, so that's what drives most of the things on the back end for us. So yeah, that's what we do at Zohr Stohr Media, and it's named after my great grandpa had a general store in Zohr, Ohio, called the Zohr Store. So that's why we pay homage to that, and a fellow entrepreneur not unlike ourselves.
Yeah, great stuff. You're actually one of the 2 people in here that have been on the podcast before, so thank you again for coming back on. But we also have a new person, new to the crew, Steve Riparip. I'm interested to learn more about you. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, Steve Riparip, the CEO and founder of Tact Firm, and we are a retention agency for cannabis retailers. And the way I got into this is I was a solo consultant working in cannabis about 5-6 years ago, and I was working with a lot of retailers directly, the owners, the managers, investors, and they had questions about is what we're doing effective? And I got in, and most of what I was doing was a little bit of brand work, design, marketing, help with some operations and admin work here and there because a lot of them needed it pretty badly. And I started getting into the messaging programs and looking at their customer data. And I realized, one, they're not messaging anyone consistently, but they have email list of thousands or tens of thousands of people. And then two, the data in there was really shocking. Seeing some of the retention numbers that we looked at. So two of the numbers that were shocking were that about half of a dispensary's customers shopped once and never returned for a second visit. Like half, that's crazy. And then we found about 70 to 80% hadn't come back after about 60 days of purchasing. So not only are they bringing in customers and they're bleeding right out, but people just aren't coming back after about 60 days. And so we saw a lot of retailers asking, how do we get new customers? And I said, what about you retain your current customers? Because even if you get new customers in, you're going to lose them anyway. And so that's where my journey into retention started about 2 years ago. Over time, we honed in some different techniques and strategies that I worked with directly with these retailers. And then last year was a big growth year for us in my company. Again, I started off as basically a solo consultant working with about 3 to 5 stores. And now we have a team of about 18 full-time team members in marketing, creative, data, and operations that are pulling it all together to work with over 50 retailers to basically add a ton of new revenue to their stores every month through our retention analytics and retention strategies. So it's been pretty fun. Big proponent of what Ryan is doing with text and what the other Ryan is doing with ads and acquisition and email. So you got a really great group here of 2 Ryans that really know what they're doing. So I'm excited to talk with them here.
Yeah, and also a great Steve. Congratulations on your growth. I'm really excited to learn more from you. And then we have Ryan Stewart. He's also coming back on for the second time, and he was actually one of our top viewed podcasts last year. And so thank you for helping us get some views, Ryan. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself again for people who didn't see the first time?
Yeah, of course. So super excited to be back, and thank you, Sam. And so I'm the founder CEO of Dispojoy, and we started the company a year ago, which is like how fast that's gone by. I've been in the cannabis industry about a decade now, and so ultimately, when I started my own company, I've always been a text evangelist. I don't know why. That's how brands get me. That's how whether it's you said cannabis. Obviously, I think there's this golden age that years ago, maybe like 5-6 years ago, it was sort of this free for all kind of deal, and every dispensary was texting a lot and loving it and seeing great results. And then I think as the industry started to grow, you started to see a little bit of this sort of texts were being restricted or getting blocked, and they weren't working as well, and oh, you should use an image here, or you can't say this word, and oh, you got to put it behind this link. And ultimately, having worked for some of these big text companies that are in the cannabis space for a long time, I kind of got to see the inner workings of what works and what doesn't, what's truth, what's myth, what actually is happening as opposed to what's being told to you. And so I think a lot of it's just we don't really know. And so when I started Dispojoy was, well, let's just try stuff. Let's see what we can do in order to bring back this traditional style of text marketing that dispensaries would probably prefer their customers to see and make it really easy for them. The data around texting is great in general. 95% of people open their text within like a couple minutes. So we can get a text delivered with direct content in the text. You're going to get a lot of good impressions. And then I think coupled with loyalty, how to build that bridge a little bit makes it even more valuable. So yeah, I think we're really excited to talk more about these things and loyalty and texting and email and all the above. And so that's a little bit about Dispojoy and what we're doing. And we've grown a lot in the last year, and we're excited for this year as well, and just to get our name out there and I think demystify a little bit of the strategies and things that make texting hard or easy. And we also do all the text for our clients as well. So we make it really easy, no onboarding. It's a white glove service with us, and we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, and I've heard lots of great things about you specifically, Ryan, and all of you gentlemen. And so really excited to have all three of you on here. I think all of you each have your own individual strength that really stands out. And so we're going to try and highlight those real quick. And so let's go ahead and jump into our moderated discussion. So I want to give you each the floor for a little bit here to kind of discuss something that I kind of determined to be your area of strengths. And so let's start off with Ryan Stewart. Let's go back to you again, just because that's what I have you first on my list here. I wanted to talk about strategies that brands can use right now in 2025 to ensure that their text messages are delivered and convert into an ROI machine? Can you go ahead and talk about what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I'll start off by saying texting right now with cannabis, it comes in different forms, right? There are some companies that will have it just be basically a link gated text, meaning that, there's a generic sort of notification template, right? Maybe a 10 DLC, which is a phrase of registering the business ultimately, but you can't have cannabis content in the actual text. Typically there's like a 3-step process or 2-step process, pin code, age gate to then see the content. That's like an orange, right? It's fruit. You can use it, you can eat it, it's healthy. And then there's the apple, which is more like Dispojoy text, which are just traditional image, logo, brand, content, direct deals. Hey, 20% off edibles, tap your link to your website below. So it's sort of an apples oranges kind of a thing. But it's both fruit, and it sort of depends on, I think with brands wanting to get the most out of texting, it's how do you communicate to the customer what they can expect? Steve had mentioned consistency, predictability. So if you're predictable with texting, hey, we text on Wednesdays and Fridays, or we text on Mondays and Saturdays, having a schedule, being consistent, the customer knows, hey, when you get a text, it's going to have this 3-step process to see it. It's worth it. We've got a lot of value behind that link, right? Great. The customer knows what to expect. With a text like a Dispojoy text, it's a little bit easier to kind of just, you get it, you open it, it's like, oh, the 30% off concentrates, just today, shop now, right? So I think strategy, not to think about, overarching display of images compared to text copy. I think it's more texting actually is, I think more about consistency, predictability, understanding, rather than saying text at 9 a.m. one day and, at 4:20 the next day, like maybe 9 a.m. every single time. Maybe it's at 5 p.m. every single time. And track the data that way. Look at those consistent elements as opposed to kind of thinking about the segmentation audience or, oh, we're texting too many people, the ROI is not as good. Yes, you can have these strategies, which I know Steve will, I think, touch more on, and I don't want to talk too long about that because he's much more an expert in that than I am. But when it comes to getting really the most out of texting, depending on who you're using, whether it's us or another third-party provider, there are advantages in our opinion that, less friction, direct content. We think it's better just because we're biased, right? That's just what I like personally. Others might really like, the data tracking links, tracking clicks, tracking those things like that. So it just depends on what the brand views as. We like oranges better than apples, but if you're eating the fruit every single day, you're going to be healthy, right? If you're consistently eating the things that you need to do and being, sort of thinking of it as nutrition, you're going to get better results. You're going to feel better, down the road. I think that's what a lot of brands that we talk with don't have a strategy around, just being consistent in how they're communicating to customers as to what to expect. And I think that's probably the easiest thing that a brand can do. It just it costs no money to do that. Just to pick a time and try things out. Like, wow, our texts are doing better on Friday afternoons than they were on Friday mornings, right? More people are seeing them when they're on their way home from work. Or, wow, our texts on Saturdays are better because, ultimately more people are coming in on that day anyway. So it's just getting average tickets going up now because we're promoting the deals we want on those busier days. People are spending $60, now they're spending $70 as average ticket. So I think these are the things that they don't cost any money. They just cost a little bit of time and energy and effort. And I think working with Steve or working with Ryan on those strategies, whether it's email or anything, like it's all the same. It's the same brand experience. And I think if you can be consistent in that, you're going to see a lot better results if you're using texting currently. And it's as simple as that. It's really not complicated, which is great.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and move on to Steve Riparip for our next question. And my question for you is, what actionable strategies can retailers implement immediately to enhance customer loyalty and retention in 2025?
That's a great question. When you look at retention marketing, there's the implementation, and there's strategy, and then there's the research. So you implement the strategy. The strategy is informed by the research. And so we always start with the research, and that's through data. POS platform gathers the data. If you use a different type of CRM loyalty platform like Happy Cabbage, AIQ, Spring Big, others, they collect certain customer data as well. So you always start with the data. And the fallacy that we sometimes see is over segmentation, over looking through the data too specifically. You want to find the biggest groups that'll make the biggest impact. So for example, here's an example of going too deep. You could say, well, we want to be relevant with our messages. So we're going to find people that purchase on Mondays between 2 and 4 o'clock, and we're going to send them a message at 10 o'clock. And if these people buy flower and vape, we're going to send them just specific messages on flower and vape. Initially, you think, wow, that's hyper relevant to that person. It should get great results. What you find with the data once you start looking in is the people that you just segmented. If you spot check each of those people, shopping on Monday between 2 and 4 p.m. that like flower and vape, well, they might have only ever shopped once, which is highly likely, and that was when they purchased. But that doesn't mean that's always when they're going to purchase, the day, the time, the products. And so when you look at it too deeply and try to have these micro segments, you actually often miss the target. And so we look at broad segmentation first, and then we can chunk it down into realistic segmentation to where we're not going too small, where we're missing the mark, and also putting too much work into implementing the messages that hit these people, because you have to put together the data audience segmentation. You have to put together designs for everything, how you're going to structure the copy in the message, the subject line, then you have to measure and track everything. And so if you do that with 10 messages a day, you have to have either a very robust system or a huge team to track that. And the difference between that hyper-segmentation, which again is probably going to get you lower results than a more broad segmentation, is you have less resources that are going to be put towards that, and you're probably going to get better results. And so first is people need to look at their data. And what type of data do you look at? Well, we have a set of retention metrics that talk about the health of a store. So the first one we look at is first-time churn rate. This is simply taking how many customers have shopped only once at your store ever out of all of your customers ever. And so you might find, hey, we've had 100,000 people shop at our store over the last 5 years. 50,000 of them have only come here once. Okay, you have a 50% first-time churn rate. That number will shock people because they don't think it's that high, and they see it. Wait, half the people that we bring in don't even come back? That's crazy. The other number, like I mentioned earlier, is what we call the lost customer rate. It's the amount of customers that have not shopped in over 60 days. So same numbers. If you have 100,000 customers over the last 5 years, you might find that between 70,000 and 80,000 of them have not come back in over 60 days. So you're at a 70 to 80% there, and you'll have a very specific number. So first is finding the metrics that point to the biggest problems. Those two are the biggest problems. Anything else is a lot smaller problems, and so you can solve those later, but those two are where we start. Okay, so we did the research, we found the data. We found that 50% don't come back, 70 to 80% haven't shopped in over 60 days. How do we develop a strategy from that? Then you move into the strategy phase where, okay, we need to message these people and get them back in. So let's look at the lost customers, 70 to 80%. That is a large chunk. How many of these customers do we have an email or phone number for? It's going to shrink down considerably. If you have 70,000 people that haven't shopped in over 60 days, you'll find, depending on what you've trained your staff to do and how you've captured their information, you might only have 10,000, 20,000 of those people's emails or phone numbers, which is sad because now you can't even reach or message 50,000 people. So, okay, now you chunked it down to about, let's say 10,000 people that you can actually message. How many of them have an email? How many of them have a phone number? And then you can split that up as well to figure out what channel do we message them with? Which channel will, do they actually have? And then you figure out, okay, when we message them, what's going to get them to come back? If you just say, hey, we miss you, that's not going to do anything. Maybe a very small percentage will come back, but not very many at all. You have to give them an incentive. So figure out what type of discount incentive might work for getting people back in. Start conservatively, and then you can always build up. Make the email designed very nicely. Keep it simple, minimal. Don't cram it with 10 different sections. Have one intent for the email, design around that one intent. Okay, so we did the research. We know what people we want to target. We put together the strategy of how we're going to do it. Now let's implement it. And so in your platform, you go and figure out the email part, the text part, some platforms have both, some of them don't. If you don't have text on your platform, talk to Ryan Stewart here with Dispojoy, because you can export that list of people, send it to him, and he can target them. And then you know who those people are. So however you decide, whatever platform you use or service to target them, you have your email and SMS, create those messages, send it out, have a short attribution time period. We see this done wrong all the time. People track the results of those campaigns for like 7 days, 14 days, which is insane. So what that means is if someone gets your email, your system will track if they made a purchase in 14 days of receiving that email or opening the email, which how can you prove that message did that? Maybe they came back naturally. Maybe another message you sent out made them come back. So track for like a two or three at a time period. Keep it short, keep it tight. And then you can always send out another one after that. You can stack them, don't overlap them. That way your messaging and data tracking is very clearly separated. And then after you implement and send those out, it's the tracking. Again, it's the research part over again. You now have to track and measure the success of those campaigns. How many people was it delivered to? If you use Ryan Stewart at Dispojoy, you'll find that above 95% of your text messages will get delivered. You look at your email open rates, look at your click rates, and then you look at your unsubscribes, your failures, you look at conversion rates, how many people redeemed that discount, and then it tells you how effective that was. And then you can adjust the strategy again and adjust the implementation. So if we see all the time, a lot of dispensary teams are not doing this. They're just blasting out to everyone with not changing any settings, not doing any research. That's where you don't know if it's working or not. Because here's the thing, when you find out the channels that work the best, whether it's email, SMS, programmatic, Google Meta, other types of ads, direct mail, billboards, if you can even track that. If you know what you can track with certainty, then you can pump more money into that. If you put $1 in, you get $4 back. Why would you not put $100,000 in to get $300,000 or $400,000 back? So when you know with certainty that you can get a positive return, it's tracked, it's proven, put more money into that, and that'll help grow your store. So step-by-step framework of how stores can actually implement this type of process. And that's what we do with over 50 stores that we work with. We go through that entire process. We go a little bit deeper in some other ways, but that's how we've generated, I think since March, we've just from getting back those lost customers that I talked about that haven't shopped in over 60 days, we just got our results in this week. So between March and December, we've generated over $4 million in new revenue for those stores by just being smart about it. And there's a lot of money that each store can make if they just follow a framework like that, be smart about it, be intelligent, use the right type of services, and get them back in your door.
Yeah, great stuff. Both great answers from both of you. You guys are putting game on wax. I hope people are listening. One more question for one more person before we move on to a broader discussion. Let's talk to Mr. Ryan McMullen. My question for you is, how could dispensaries effectively leverage programmatic ads alongside email marketing to maximize revenue from their existing customer lists?
Yeah, so I actually had this conversation with clients quite a bit, and Steve mentioned it in his opening, where like the sexy thing that every client wants is, I want new customers, which I'm like, no. This is like it's not even a chicken and the egg thing. It's like you need to have your back end set up so that when you start putting money on the front end to get people in your ecosystem, it's ready. Otherwise, it's just a leaky bucket, like Steve said, where half the people will never come back. If they get over 60 days, they ain't never coming back, basically. So what we do is, again, are those two things. And so the programmatic display ads are just kind of the next generation of like traditional banner ads that we're used to. So you go on, Rolling Stone, and you're reading an article about, I don't know, Nirvana or whatever, and then you see the ad pop up for the cannabis dispensary closest to you, because we're able to geo target these folks, based on their proximity to whatever store we're trying to promote at that time. And so, interestingly enough, what we found is, so obviously they're on desktop, they're on mobile, all those different places, that the games that folks play, like the free ones, and then like the there's a Candy Crush or one of those where you can still have ads. Those things crush it because you have people who are smoking pot, just sitting there playing their game. And it's because we're able to track exactly where this person came from, all the way, their whole journey to what they bought. So you probably could get over granular and say, okay, Candy Crush results in this pre-roll and this, dispensary. So, which kind of brings you to a different point where it's refreshing to hear Steve and other Ryan talk about tracking, because that's where most, not necessarily agencies, but a lot of the in-house marketing departments that I've spoken to they're kind of clueless when it comes to tracking, and tracking is what drives everything. It's the least sexy thing we do. But like, especially with the programmatic ads, how do we justify, okay, well, we have a $10,000 spend this month. We need to know how much revenue we created from that. And again, we're able to go through there and tell you the exact person, what they bought, when they bought it, from what site they bought it, and then go back, use that data. Okay, this Candy Crush game is awesome. Let's put more resources towards that, more budget towards that, until that no longer is advantageous. So it's just like Steve said, and I know Ryan is the same way with the tracking. You're researching, you're testing, then you're taking those results, and so it's a flywheel. Then it gets better and better and better. Like our first month, we typically see like a 300%, return on ad spend, and by month number 3, we're up to like 600 or 700% return on ad spend in a new market. So it's really they go hand in hand. Where, okay, let's get the new people with our programmatic display ads into our ecosystem, and then let exactly what Steve is describing and what Ryan is describing take over for the retention to keep them in our ecosystem. And really the best part of this whole thing is very few dispensaries that I've seen and talking to these guys are doing it right. So if you're one of the few that is doing it right, you have a tremendous competitive advantage over, what most of these people are in very, very competitive markets. So that's what I like about the second half is it is essentially free. If you do it yourself, it's work, so it costs money there. I would highly suggest people hire somebody to do it, but you could do it for free if you had to bootstrap it. So that's how those two things work together: build our list and keep selling to our list until the end of time.
Yeah, recently, kind of on that note you were talking about there, I had somebody reach out to me about programmatic ads, and then after spending about 10 minutes looking into it myself, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to ask Ryan. It is just so exhausting to even get started with, at least from what I interpreted, and so definitely wanted to shout you out on that. Moving on, I wanted to kind of open up the floor to a broader question. And so this question is, what is the most impactful change or set of changes dispensaries can make to improve customer retention? Let's go ahead and start with Ryan. What do you think about that? Ryan Stewart. There's 2.
I would say, which Ryan? You can call me Stu, I guess, would probably be the way to do it at this point, right? That's what people call me back as a kid, is just call me Stu. Yeah, great question. I think, and I'll definitely defer to the other Ryan and to Steve as well. But having worked for companies like Spring Big in the past and sort of looking at loyalty at a sort of bird's eye view, and I was just really into the data, right? A lot of, being in the customer success team over there, like a lot of our day was making sure clients, could get their text delivered, right? Because there was so much deliverability problems with texting at that time when I was there, that it was hard to talk about loyalty and how to improve things because the texting wasn't working. And so that was the most important priority. And so keeping customers happy, and that was a hard job. We have a much easier job at Dispojoy, which is great. But at the end of the day, loyalty, there's a couple metrics that I always point out to people, and it goes beyond loyalty a little bit. So I'll kind of answer my thought on your question, and I'll kind of add to it a little bit, which maybe you'll like. I don't know if I talked about it in the last podcast, maybe I didn't, but it'll be good to kind of rehash it. Loyalty comes in different forms, and I'll let Steve talk about what he sees. But a couple metrics why I like texting as a loyalty driver is if somebody wants to, let's say, sign up for texting, right? You offer it. Hey, we have a text program. Do you want to sign up for that? Okay, maybe there's a discount they get, you know, sign up for it. But if you offer texting by itself, that's not a very sexy thing, right? But say if you couple it with a loyalty thing, it's like, hey, do you want to sign up for our text rewards program? We would see like, you know, going from like a 10%, you know, sort of, sign up rate for new customers to like a 30% sign up rate, like a pretty big jump, right? Where like every new customer that comes in, you're going from 10% signing up for texting to 30%, right? That's just because you changed the word text rewards program as opposed to just text program. So that's an easy, that is the most easy free thing you can do, right? Because what we found the data while looking at it still, and that's customer F that's opted into SMS, right? Just opted in, not even necessarily you're messaging them. They have a 3x LTV or lifetime value increase just by being opted into texting over being opted out. So I always tell customers, even if they don't use us for texting, it's like, hey, it's a numbers game at that point. And email, I'm sure the metrics might be similar as well. And I haven't looked enough at email, so I wouldn't know. But for texting, if a customer is going to basically visit more often in your store because you're texting them, that's really the only difference. That's why it's a 3x difference. They're just visiting a few extra times per year, right? But obviously adds up for thousands of customers. So that from a loyalty perspective, it's like if there's any strategy that we could deploy to a dispensary who likes texting and just wants to get more out of it, is take your loyalty program and make texting a little bit more valuable as a text rewards component and boost those signups, because then all of a sudden you're going to see an increase in revenue in those customers' lifetime value. And so that costs you nothing. Which is great. There's basically infinite ROI. So I think to kind of spill it down to a really basic, you know, element and a little bite-sized bit here is sign more people up for texting and do what you got to do to sign them up, whether it's give them a great discount. I know a lot of stores we work with will have like a rolling thing where their first visit, they get, you know, 20% off. The second visit, if they're still opted into the loyalty program and texting, they get, you know, that sort of that second, third, and fourth. If you get them to 4 visits, and maybe Steve will mirror this, 4 visits, that magic number. Once they get to 4, like, they are actually a loyal customer now, right? The drop off and fall off of the 5th visit is so much better that, you know, 50% off, 50% people don't visit after the first visit. So if you can get them to that second one, you won. And then third, and then the 4 is a magic number. So we like to implement texting, you know, into the loyalty program because it's just easier to kind of engage with that customer. So that's one aspect of it. The other one is sort of looking at loyalty from a retention standpoint as well, not just like a way to kind of get them in. But if you can keep them opted in by leveraging texting at that point, by saying, hey, if you're opted into texting, opt into the loyalty program, you get more perks than by being opted out. So for example, you know, McDonald's is a great example of this with the app. You get free French fries on Fridays if you have the app downloaded. If you don't get those fries. So it motivates you to keep the app, right? So a lot of dispensaries deal with churn, email opting out, text opting out. It's going to happen. You can't run away from that. But on average, I would say, you know, I'm really happy with like a 0.5% opt-out rate per text message. That's a really nice number. If it's in that 3% to 4 to 2% range per text, like there's the problem there with retention. And so do what you got to do to make, hey, by staying opted in, you get these additional perks as well, not just for signing up. So I think most stores will have a strategy around getting more signups, to leverage texting to make it more valuable for the shopping experience, because you know on the back end, you're gonna 3x that customer's value right away by being opted into texting. And then do what you got to do to keep them opted in, and have some type of, you know, leverage around that, whether it's, you know, a special perk for staying opted in, not just getting points, because they could opt out and then still get the points in the point of sale system, or their loyalty program. They still accrue points, they still get the perks. So have some type of leverage aspect of the program to make it worth staying opted in, email or even text. I think those two things, it's so simple to do, is that just kind of like Steve said, have a strategy around what you want to do and then implement it, track it, see how it goes. Like, wow, we went from 10% signups to up to 40%. Or it's like, wow, we went from 30 to 35%. Like, that's okay. As long as you know what you're looking at, you can make improvements. Most stores have no idea what their signup rates are. And I think you have to first look and be honest with yourself, or work with a company that is willing to look at it for you, like Steve, and take the time to kind of give you that big picture. And then, hey, here's a strategy that we feel like we can implement to get from 10% to 30%. And I think that's really a simple thing to do. And that way people don't have to think it's complicated. It's really, I think at that basic level, what I found is keep it simple, stupid, and look and pay attention, and then have strategy. And I think that's what excites me about testing in general. So.
Yeah, good stuff, Ryan. Let's move on to Steve at Riparip. Once again, the question is, what is the most impactful change or set of changes dispensaries can make to improve customer retention?
Yeah, a lot of the points Ryan made are amazing. And so earlier, Sam, you mentioned our retention engine. That's kind of our main service. And it's made up of different components for a reason. So one of them is what we call the life cycle ladder. It looks at when customers make their purchases, right? How many customers stop at one purchase? How many customers stop at two purchases, 3, 4, 5? And what Ryan said about the 4 or 5 purchase number is, when we looked at this data, we basically measured out, plotted out. And we know that about 50% of customers churn at their first purchase. At purchase number 2, about 28% churn. At purchase number 3, we're down to about 20%. Purchase number 4, 16. 5 is about 15, and it starts to level off, 15, 13, 12, 10. And so when we look at the biggest churn, it's between 1 and 3. But if you get them to 5, that's when it starts to really level off. And each time you get someone to make another purchase, it adds to their LTV, assuming that they spend around the same amount each time. If you make them come back a second time, you doubled their LTV. They can come back a third time, you now added 30% onto that, and so on. And it builds and builds. But when they hit 5 purchases, you now have 4 or 5x to their LTV, right? So it's a numbers game. Like everyone's saying here, it's a numbers game. It really is. You got to know the numbers and know how to positively influence the numbers. So the life cycle ladder is one point. When we look at this whole retention life cycle of the customers, where are they churning at what point in purchasing? Because then we implement funnels at each point, right? Where we got to get first timers to come back for a second time. And we got to get second purchaser people to come back a third time. And so if you're not top of mind to them, if you're not constantly in front of them, then you won't get them back. One of the other strategies we use too is what we call the re-up capture, where we send out multiple messages a week. Because we also found that about 70 to 80% of customers shop between 7 and 30 days. But we don't know what day they're going to shop and when. It's kind of like toilet paper at your house. You have a bunch of toilet paper in your closet, and just because we tell you that toilet paper is 20% off doesn't mean you're going to buy more. You have enough for the next 3 months. You're good. Doesn't matter how many times we tell you we got new toilet paper in. You're not going to buy new toilet paper. When you're running low, that's when you buy. But we don't know when you're going to buy toilet paper, so we're going to message you often enough. So when that time frame does come when you're going to repurchase and re-up, that we can capture you. And then we also look at the lost customers, right? We also have a feature called the reward cycle. Very similar to what Ryan was talking about, is how do we use the rewards system? We don't like calling it loyalty, because loyalty is very tricky to define. It's very undefined. And so we don't, if you can't define something, how do you track it? How do you measure it? How do you improve on it? We call it reward cycle because, like Ryan was saying, in the name, it's psychologically very different. Rewards, you give something, you get something. And so we use the reward program by structuring intelligent tiers, right? When they can redeem the rewards for points, but also using those perks, exactly what Ryan said, to keep them subscribed. And every email we send out, having in the footer there, don't forget, you get these perks by staying subscribed. That's right above the unsubscribe button. So if they're going down to unsubscribe, they're like, wait, if I unsubscribe, I'll lose these perks. Let me not do that. That drastically decreases unsubscribes, right? So you got to play around with the psychology of these customers. You have to really understand all the facets that we're dealing with, because it can be complex, but we can simplify it by understanding the most important components. And with the reward system too, here's a trick we like to do. Say at 500 points, you can redeem that for $10 off. A lot of people will get stuck between 400 and 500 points. And maybe they haven't shopped in a certain amount of days. Maybe they forgot about it. Send them a message saying, don't forget, you're almost at that threshold to get 500 points. Or what you can do, gift them 100 points to push them over that threshold. Say, hey, don't forget, you have 500 points to use. That's $10 off of free money. Come in and use it. Retention, right? How do we use rewards, points in different ways to get people to come back, create FOMO for them, fear of missing out of the points that they have, use scarcity, show them maybe you just brought in a new product and you really do only have a limited amount on your shelves and it's popular, it'll go fast. Use urgency. So if you use any type of discounts and coupons, have a short expiration period. Very common tactics that we see in marketing, in behavioral psychology that we know works, but aren't often implemented in cannabis marketing. So we take all that into account, put all the data together, put together a strategy, we just implement it, measure it, and that's how we get results, like real results. Not results that are murky or undefined, but results that we can track every single transaction through the POS, through the platform, and everything is confirmed, and we can pump more money and more effort into it, and it creates more money for the stores.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Really great answer. Let's move on to Ryan McMullen. Once again, the question is, what is the most impactful change or set of changes dispensaries can make to improve customer retention?
Yeah. So, Steve, I like the basically the free shipping. Once you spend $10 more, you get free shipping. Kind of like that, because when you're describing, once you get to the 500 point threshold, of course people are going to try and get there. If I get to, let's say it's $100 for free shipping, and I get to $90, like I'm going to look for a pair of socks that's $11 to get me over to get to the free shipping, even though the shipping might only be $6. I'm actually costing myself $5 or $6 more, but I can't. It's one of those things like the fear of missing out. Like I can't pay for shipping anymore. Amazon's ruined us, and like that, it's like you've gotten all these points. I can't not use them at this point. So yeah, that's a pretty powerful one. But yeah, just to kind of keep it simple about what dispensaries can do. The first thing is, a lot of these prospects, clients I talk to, they would be terrible on Shark Tank because they don't know their numbers when it comes to anything. Like what is your cost of acquisition? If you ask 99 out of 100 operators, they would not know that answer. So that's the first thing is knowing your numbers. And then two, just being consistent, whether it's through email or SMS. So my cousin and I have just a little side hustle like all of us lunatic marketers have. We've been doing it for about 10 years. And all we do is send a daily email to our list. It's a golf fitness list. I don't segment it at all, but we get an incredible open rate because we're consistent. I'm not that great of a writer where people are like, oh, I need to read this guy's stuff. He's Shakespeare. But people open it, we've got like a 48% open rate. Anytime we want to sell something, half the people are opening our emails, and then, whatever percentage are going to buy from that, just from having that email list and just being consistent. So that's like what has driven that thing for 10 years. So that would be my number one thing, is just stay consistent and continually talk to your customers. Now, Steve's is better where you start there and then you start to add a little more complexity as you go. But yeah, consistency, I think is gonna, then you'll win. Again, because most people are not doing that.
Yeah, I love that consistency. You never know when somebody's busy or what's going on in the mind of the other person, especially, maybe it's a client that's about to sign on that's really close, but there's just not the right time. And I love that. I thought that was interesting that you said to email them every day too. Moving forward, I have one more question for each of you individually. And then from there's going to be one more final question. So we might go a little bit over an hour. I'm sorry if we do. Definitely respect your guys' time. But let's start this one with Ryan McMullen. He's kind of been pushed to the side in those last couple questions here. Let's do you first this time. So my question for you is, what is the best email marketing strategy to convert a brand new customer into one that comes back many more times?
I think having a really good welcome series. So basically, whether it be 3 emails, that's the welcome series. What I like about it is it's a welcome to our ecosystem. And then a very effective one is, okay, here's what's going to happen next. You sign up, you've already signed up for our email. you're going to get some rewards, emails from us, just basically framing out how this relationship is going to work. And then that leads into the regular communication. So once let's assume it's a 3 to 5 email welcome campaign, then you make it through that, and then you go into the regular, 3 times a week emails that, hey, this is what's going on at, dispensary XYZ. And then with all of those, you've got different categories. Here's what's going on. These are the new products. This is what's happening in our dispensary and all that. But I think it's almost like onboarding a client, where you're setting the framework of how this relationship is going to work. I think that's the best first thing you can do for a new customer to get them back to that 3, 4, or 5 purchase frequency.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go ahead and jump to Mr. Ryan Stewart. My question for you is, what kind of mistakes do dispensaries make with their text message marketing? And are there any new strategies in 2025 that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, mistakes is sort of a good umbrella term, right? And I kind of touched on it in the last answer, and it's not. And I'll piggyback off of Ryan's consistency thing, because that's, just having just doing it ultimately, and not letting us. There's a lot of times dispensaries they'll send a text one week and then they'll be a couple weeks off, right? And then it's like, we have a lot of clients that'll send, a single text a month, which is great. We have a flexible payment, like there's no subscription with us, right? It's just you text, pay as you go. You do it whenever you want. I like that setup on purpose, but ultimately it's like, hey, if you are texting, like if you're gonna do it, be intentional. And I think like minimum once a week is great. Like it doesn't have to be texting every day. There are brands that we work with that do text every day, and if they're happy, great. We're not going to tell you not to. But if say that opt-out rate is getting above that threshold that we like to see, above that 1% every day, I would say dial it back a little bit, because to Steve's point earlier, if you lose that opt-out, like you can't message them, you can't talk to them anymore, and maybe you don't have an email for them. So it's really valuable that when you capture them, you really want to add value. And so with that in mind, I think the strategy in 2025, at least for our clients that we work with, is like, how are we really adding value with these texts? Like texting to text is great, and it's just being opted in. We know the numbers look great. People will spend more money with you if they're opted in and you're hitting them up every now and then. But I think having like an implemented strategy around intent, hey, we want to send texts on Fridays because of XYZ. Right? And here's why that adds value to your experience, Mr. Customer. We're not just going to hit you up just to sort of randomly give you a deal. I think that's great for those win backs. It's great for those fallen off customers to kind of get them back in. But I think when you're messaging your customers consistently and engaging the best customers, your most loyal customers, I would say, who have visited at least 5 to 10 times, right? Just have fun. I think just have fun with it and be consistent and keep it really simple. I think one of the better performing texts that we sent for a brand this last sort of end of last year was like the Brad Pitt gif of like after reading, where he's just doing this, and like that was a great text. There wasn't any deal in the image. It was just like a really simple offer, but it was just fun, and then engage the customer to go, oh, this was funny. They're more likely to click. They're more likely to sort of engage with the brand. So it's like really not overthinking it. So I think strategy in 2025 that brands can kind of, especially if they're using us and having direct results with sort of direct content in the text message, let's just have some fun with it. Let's just push the bar as far as we can go, and that way customers feel good about getting a text. It's like a little bit of a dopamine hit, right? Because that's what when you get a text, there's a little bit of a dopamine experience, right? I know it is for me. I don't have a lot of friends, and so it's like when I get a text, I'm just like, oh, I got a text. Wait, I'm like, oh, it's just a brand text. Like, we don't want that. So I think if you can have this mentality around 2025, let's have fun with our marketing, email, push notifications. Like, I think it was National Pizza Week last week, right? Like that's a perfect opportunity, rather than going, hey, it's Munchie Monday again for the 20th, 50th time every week. Like there's a diminishing law of returns there, right? But if it's like, hey, it's National Pizza Day, don't forget, it's 20% off edibles on Mondays. Get some edibles and go grab a pizza down the street. We've partnered with Tony's Pizza. You can get 10% off pizzas. Like, that's a perfectly fun marketing message that most people just aren't getting creative enough. Maybe they don't have the time. And I think that's ultimately what we want to try to implement. Like, hey, let's mix it up a bit. and let's see what we can do. And kind of just, rather than doing the same thing over and over again and expecting better and better results, like let's try different things and kind of see the impact on that. And that's what we're all going to be about this year, is just have some fun with it. And I think that's really our goal. And I think if you can do that, your customers are going to feel that, and therefore be more excited to get your messages, more excited to come in and shop. And that just, once again, drives a little bit sticky behavior with the customer, and the goal is loyalty. So that's really the name of the game.
Yeah, great answer. I'd love to kind of underline the add value part to that. Just in personal experience, I've noticed whether it's my email funnel or posting on LinkedIn, if I do a sales pitch, it's more likely to have people click the X or unsubscribe. Whereas if I'm doing something that gives value, more engagement. And it's just, I don't know. It seems counterintuitive, but it's really not. Finally, let's go to Steve Riparip. Enough about me. What is your favorite loyalty software for cannabis dispensaries in 2025? And why?
Yeah, the one we've seen that kind of checks all the boxes of how we develop our strategy and implement would be AIQ. And the reason is because it has loyalty rewards built into it. It has a robust analytics part to it as well, if you know how to use it in different ways. It has great segmentation, audience features, obviously has the email, SMS. They did introduce their 10 DLC, which causes more friction with the customers. And for those that don't know what 10 DLC is and how that changed specifically with these platforms, before you could send a message, right? You could attach an image and you could customize that message. You can say almost whatever you want. If you say things that are too much out of bounds, it'll get flagged and it'll get blocked or whatever, but you could customize what you wanted to say, even if you leave out any cannabis language. And then they click on a link in there and it brings you to a landing page, which you can design nicely. Well, now how that looks is when they get a message, it says a very generic, you have a notification, or there's something for you here. I sign up for a lot of loyalty programs, so I have like 10 of these a day that I get, or 20, all say the same thing, very generic. And so it's not engaging, like Ryan puts in his messages. Then you click on the link, then you have to verify your birth date, you have to put in a PIN code, then it brings you to another page, you have to click another button, and then finally you get to that landing page. So it introduced a lot of friction into that. And so the benefit of something like Dispojoy is they get your message right away. There's no 3-4 clicks they need to go through a process to get to the content, the information. So we prioritize email on those types of platforms because they have good deliverability. More people will give an email than a phone number in some cases, depending on how the stores incentivize it or how they're trained to ask for it. And so AIQ, they also have a great support system as well. They have a chat, you can hit them up and they really help you out. I mean, with the dozens of stores that we work with that use AIQ, we're able to get support on some weird bugs that we might encounter, or we want to push the boundaries of their system, and they work with us in figuring out how that can be done. So a lot of flexibility and customization with it, and that's, for us, that's our go-to.
Yeah, and I was checking out your profile, and Steve Riparip is Alpine IQ certified too. So if you wanted to work with the expert, that would be him right there. One more question for each of you, kind of quick little question, I think, that we can just get in and out with. Looking forward to the next 2 to 3 years, do you guys see a disruptor in the niche of loyalty and retention? Or what are you guys looking forward to the next 2 to 3 years in this niche of loyalty? Let's start with Ryan Stewart.
Yeah, disrupting. I mean, anything in retail, especially as you see more states come on board, you see cannabis continue slowly, but continue to become more of a normalized product. You're going to be, I think probably the biggest disruptor I would find would be, you kind of go back to Ryan's mention of Amazon, right? Like what happens if Amazon or other big, like a Walmart or a Target, you can buy some cannabis there. Now that's a kind of a fantasy land that would ever happen. It's a very small percentage. But what happens if that does happen, right? Like, do cannabis stores become more like corner liquor stores where you can get it every now and then, but you're probably just buying your groceries and your beer at the grocery store, right? You're not going separately to the liquor store. Smoke shops obviously are a market that you could look at where people aren't really selling tobacco products in grocery stores, and so you got to go to a tobacco shop, right? So ultimately it just kind of depends. But you can buy really good wine at grocery stores now. So I buy my wine at the grocery store. I don't have to go to a liquor store to buy alcohol, right? I'm not a big drinker, but if I want to buy a 6-pack of like a nice IPA or something, I just get it at the grocery store. So there's no need for me to go to a liquor store. And so that would be probably the biggest disruptor, because loyalty coupled with convenience, where does that line get drawn, right? Because you're going to have people who prefer convenience over loyalty, convenience over points. And I think if dispensaries want to really avoid that, and said this is more of a hypothetical thing, there's no rumor or anything that I've heard that Amazon's going to start distributing cannabis, right? That's maybe a decade down the road. So I think having a loyalty program now, getting a guy that's got 25,000 points in his wallet, in his dispensary wallet, like that guy's probably not going to go buy cannabis, at the grocery store. He's already got a great experience. He's already got all this sort of stickiness with that dispensary. So if you don't have a loyalty program now, you need to get it now, because things move so fast, as we know, with technology, that all of a sudden you could see a big shift. It could be a simple change of a law. Trump's going to be president here coming soon again. It's highly unlikely, but what if he just decides I want our government to make money off of cannabis, right? It's already been descheduled, and he signs into it that it becomes federally legal. What the heck happens now? If you're a mom and pop shop, like, you're going to become a smoke shop, and your revenue is going to probably plummet, because there is this convenience factor that people really often forget about a commodity like cannabis. Prices will come down. There's a lot of things that could happen, and so loyalty, brand, experience, relationships, like those things I think are really undervalued in our space, because we kind of all sell this same thing across different states. It's all the same, in my opinion. It's just sort of the loyalty is the differentiator. And that could be disrupted, though, with, I think, a big picture opportunity with big corporate companies seeing and thinking they have the opportunity to kind of go, oh, well, it's legal now. I think, we could buy this manufacturer, we could sell it for cheaper in Walmart. Probably highly unlikely with more of a conservative ownership there. But I think people thinking about that, I want to scare people, but I just think like that would be a great excuse to, hey, have a kick-ass loyalty program, develop great relationships with your customers now, because it could get disrupted in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think if you have that foundation, you're going to be in a good place. That would probably be my one sort of comment on that.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go ahead and do Ryan McMullen next. The question again is, what disrupting agents and trends do you see for the next 2 to 3 years in the niche of loyalty and retention?
Yeah, you kind of stole my answer with the if it goes federal. If it becomes federally legal, which is kind of the obvious one, which I think changes everything, because then big pharma comes calling, big tobacco comes calling, and starts buying all of us up. Which, hey, if you're going to give me 10x, I can change positions for a while, sit on the bench for a couple of years. But then I think the obvious answer is with AI, just to the technology, because we don't know what it's capable of. And I was actually listening to Mark Zuckerberg on Joe Rogan yesterday, and he made a really interesting point, because everybody's so worried about, is it going to put people out of jobs, which some people absolutely. But I agree with him in the fact that the AI will do a lot of the stuff that takes up our creative time. So whatever that is, that, just our busy work that I know none of us really likes to do. And then it frees us up to be more creative with our loyalty programs, our retention programs. What cool stuff can we do? Like, can we send an AI generated song like Samuel sent to us today to our customers? Who knows what it's going to be? So I think it'll be interesting if we do this in December, so in 12 months, just to see what has changed in AI about our loyalty. So I think that's the biggest one, that's just going to make us so much more efficient and gives us the ability to be more creative in how we approach this and more personalized for each customer.
Yeah, the AI box of worms, it's not even fully open yet. And I personally am not anti-AI. I see a lot of people speaking negatively about AI, but I don't even think we understand where it's going, as you're saying. So I love that answer. Let's go ahead and jump to Steve Riparip. The question again is, what disrupting agents and trends do you see in the next 2 to 3 years for retention loyalty?
Yeah, I mean, another great question, right? There's a lot that we can speculate on, but in terms of, I'll look at a positive disruption. So there's a lot of companies out there, services, platforms, agencies that are doing separate but similar things. And for me, and what I'm trying to do with my network and community is how do we start connecting the dots? Where we connect the dots between acquisition and retention, but also inventory. And so I think a positive disruption would be a collaboration, partnerships between a couple different areas: acquisition, retention, inventory, staff training, and maybe something else like investments and capital. Because if we can now look at, we acquire customers, now we can retain them, we have a nice funnel that works there. But if we can introduce inventory to where we're using the right type of products as incentives at the right points, we're understanding margins in the business to be able to offer, again, incentives or discounts that don't hurt much to the store, but they're attractive to the customer. And then tying it all in together with some type of AI or automation where, the thing that AI is lacking right now is the ability to carry out certain tasks. Like when we put together an email campaign, we have to design the graphic. Well, we have to go and find the brand and product that we're trying to promote, go and grab that image from online, cut it out from the background, put it together in a nice graphic, using the store's branding, using the fonts, putting that all together, fine-tuning it, tweaking it so it looks really nice. It's attractive to the way that we know would convert in an email. We have to structure the email. We have to segment the audiences and put that all together, timing and everything. That's all manual type of work. It'd be amazing if there's an automation or AI where you just prompted and said, hey, let's send out an email this Friday featuring this brand at this type of discount, talking about our upcoming events and promoting this and that. And it spins up the entire email with the targeting. That would save dozens of hours a week. I mean, it would save an incredible amount, especially on my team with our team members. But AI is not there yet. But that type of tool would hugely disrupt positively people's ability to create campaigns, create marketing that is faster. They can do it at a higher volume even, or just create better looking. A lot of the stores that we take over the retention marketing for, before when they were doing it themselves, it looked really bad. They didn't have any brand there. They used the stock fonts and it was all out of order. The layout was bad. That would give someone like that the ability to have their emails look as good as having a full creative team behind it. That would help them. It would help our resources out too. So I think that could be a very positive disruption where AI comes in, helps automate some of those tasks, where it also can connect the dots between all these different areas, find the inventory that makes sense to actually put on discount, help the stores even figure out better how they can use those products for better promotions, and not only products that are lagging, that are moving a little bit slow, but popular products, and finding the correct type of configurations that we can then promote in ways that create healthy margins for the business instead of giving stuff away for like 40%, 50% because it's been on their shelf for 2 months and the vendor won't take it back or whatever, or they don't know how to do that process. So there's a lot of good ways that we can disrupt the cannabis industry, especially by working together.
Yeah, and I think you hit the head on the nail there with specifically the topic of quality control and AI and how it's just not quite there yet. And maybe this year, seeing how fast things are moving, maybe this year that's something that we'll see. Having just press a button, send an email, and it'll be perfect. You won't even have to check it. But sticking with Steve Riparip. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up here, and so I'd love to give you 2-3 minutes to kind of once again pitch yourself, your service, what you do, and kind of close out. So go ahead, you can have the floor.
I'll keep it brief. In short, we make dispensaries new revenue by retaining their customers, and we do that with our retention engine, and it's crazy in depth. Like I've been explaining here, we analyze the retention life cycle. Then we have these different funnels that bring people in at different purchase visit points. We have our revenue recovery, where we recover lost customers that haven't shopped in over 60 days, most of them over 180 and over 360 days. We are able to get first timers to come back in. We use a rewards program to revamp it and make it more engaging and exciting for the customers. And we have our Tact Intelligence Analytics, where we get all the data, we track it, and we're able to understand how the improvements are made. We can improve our results month over month so that we know we're doing the right thing. And we work with all types of stores. Most of our clients do between like 400 and some of them do over $1 million a month. But we work great with stores that have been open for 5 or more years. They're doing $1 million a month, maybe between multiple stores, and they have a big email list or text list that we can actually reach out to. And so, we love doing retention. We're pretty obsessed about it. We have a big team, and we have a marketing team, a data team, a creative team, operations team, all working together to get these results, deliver it with professional excellence, and making sure that we're just helping the industry. My mission with my company is to decrease the failure of great brands run by great people. And originally I'm from Michigan, and so I saw the boom and bust in the cannabis industry there. A lot of people I knew personally were excited to open up their stores, open up their operations, and they get into it, and then it's hard. They have no margins, and they're over discounting. The competition is crazy, and they don't know their numbers, and they had to close their doors. That was hard to see because they're really great people running great brands. And I want to see a decrease in that failure rate around the whole nation with what everyone's putting into this industry.
Yeah, thank you. Once again, that's Steve Riparip. He's the CEO of Tact Firm. I will leave his information in the description. What about Mr. Ryan McMullen?
Sure. Yeah. So again, we just do 2 basic things. So and this is actually out of order. We bring new clients into your ecosystem, but first we get the ecosystem where it needs to be so that we can maximize lifetime customer value on the back end. So again, it seems it's backwards from what most clients, when they first talk to us, who always want the sexy new customers, like, well, no, let's do this. Let's make money from the customers you already have. And then that in turn will pay and then some for the paid ads to get the new customers into the ecosystem. And then the flywheel continues and continues and continues. So build the list, sell the list. That's what we do.
Thank you, Ryan. That is the CEO of Zohr Stohr Media. Also leave his information below. And finally, Mr. Ryan Stewart.
Well, first off, I've enjoyed being on this pod. I feel like I've learned a lot from Steve and from Ryan, which is great. Which is another reason why I wanted to be on here. I was like, I could probably take some information from these guys and then really learn a lot as well. So I really appreciate all of this. And so with Dispojoy, when I started the company, the goal was just to make texting fun again, right? Having seen the decline in, you can't do this, you can't say that, these texts don't get delivered, they get blocked. I was always just very curious as to there's something missing there. I think it's just more about who wants to try to figure it out and who's willing to kind of do the work. And, it's not that I don't think a dispensary would want to figure it out, but they're wearing 10 different hats, these businesses. And so, we wanted to focus on one thing and just maybe make it fun again. And that's what we do here. Ultimately, it's just to get texts that are frictionless. You get a text message from your dispensary. It says, cannabis dispensary. Here's the deals right then and there, a fun graphic image to go with it, to engage the customer. And we average about 95% deliverability. So our goal is to work with brands and dispensaries that, are looking for other options at this point, or who have kind of given up on texting potentially, or have a little PTSD around, the efficiency of texting and the viability of it. And I think just flip the script a little bit. So ultimately, I think we're looking to work with people that are kind of in that boat, who really want to maximize ultimately a last chance option potentially. Maybe they look for years and they've kind of given up on it, and they hear about us. I'm like, oh, well, I got a text from this other dispensary. It's exactly what I want to get for my shop. How does it work? And, we offer new clients a free text to get started. So there's this really low risk, right? Just to, hey, let's just see if it makes an impact. I'd rather have, to Steve's point, I'd rather see if it works. I want to add value. I don't just want to do texting again and kind of offer this sort of bad experience that they've been used to. So we're excited to keep it going for as long as we can. And I really appreciate being on this podcast and answering some fun questions.
Yeah, and thank you. Once again, that's Ryan Stewart. He's the CEO of Dispojoy. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up right here. I want to thank each of you for being here. I learned something from each of you today, constantly learning and getting better. So thank you, and looking forward to seeing you all grow, all of us grow in 2025, and maybe we can circle back in a year and have another episode.
Sounds great.
I love it.
All right, talk soon, guys.
Thanks, Jamie.
In 2025, the scene's alive. Cannabis dreams where we all thrive. Text messages, buzz, loyalty's the game. Steve Riparip, Tact Firm's the name. His emails hit harder than my last edible. Click for discounts, I'm feeling incredible. Whoa, 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 whoa. Loyalty vibes, we're rising high. Emails and texts, let's touch the sky. Ryan McMullen, Zohr Stohr's a king. Buy one, get one, oh man, that's my thing. In this green paradise, we're living the dream. Just take a fat toke and let your mind be free. Dispojoy's here, Ryan Stewart leads. Texting the deals that fulfill our needs. Hey there, buddy, got a deal for you. Here's a fat blunt and a bong for two. Samuel Fisher with website and CO flair. Green Dispensary marketing, he's got that hair. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Loyalty vibes, we're rising high. Emails and texts, let's touch the sky. Ryan McMullen, Zohr Stohr's a king. Buy one, get one, oh man, that's my thing. In this green paradise, we're living the dream. Just take a fat toke and let your mind be free. Points and rewards, it's a gamified rush. In this cannabis world, we're ready to crush. Personalized offers that make us feel seen, like free gummies, best deal I've ever gleaned. But check your stash first, don't be that guy texting your grandma like wanna get high. Loyalty vibes, we're rising high. Emails and texts, let's touch the sky. Ryan McMullen, Zohr Stohr's the king. Buy one, get one, oh man, that's my thing. In this green paradise, we're living the dream. Just take a fat toke and let your mind be free.